Today's Wednesday, March 24th, 2021. Coming up on Roland Martin Unfiltered. The Senate held its first hearing on the For the People Act today. We'll show you some of what happened, including Republicans showing their asses as usual. Two massive voter suppression bills are being rushed through the Georgia legislature. We'll talk about what we can do to stop it. Jury selection, the Derek Chauvin murder trial is complete. The trial is scheduled to begin on Monday. And today, finally, Maryland Governor Larry Hogan signs the $577 million HBCU funding bill we've been fighting for years. And Virginia, they have voted to abolish the death penalty. We'll be joined by Lieutenant Governor Justin Fairfax. Our Black Tech segment will feature an app that helps you when you're pulled over by the police. And today's crazy-ass white woman is Cindy Hyde-Smith. We'll show you why. And what the hell was Meghan McCain talking about? Qualifications? Identity politics? Boo! You got the job on The View because your last name. Oh, I gotta break this thing down. It is time to bring the funk on Roland Martin Unfiltered. Let's go.
He's got it. Whatever the biz, he's on it. Whatever it is, he's got the scoop, the fact, the find. And when it breaks, he's right on time and it's rolling. Best believe he's knowing. Putting it down from sports to news to politics. With entertainment just for kicks, he's rolling. It's on go, roll, y'all. It's Roland Martin, yeah. Rolling with Roland now. He's funk, he's fresh, he's real, the best, you know he's Roland Martin now. Martin.
Is the focus. That was the issue today as the U.S. Senate had their first hearing for the For the People Act. It is the most significant democracy reform bill since the Voting Rights Act of 1965. Republicans, of course, are not happy at all with that particular bill. Here's what took place today.
This bill is the single most dangerous bill this committee has ever considered. This bill is designed to corrupt the election process permanently, and it is a brazen and shameless power grab by Democrats. It speaks volumes that this is H.R. 1 and S1, that the number one priority of Democrats is not COVID, it's not immunizations, it's not getting people back to work, it's not getting kids back in school, it's keeping Democrats in power for 100 years. And how do they do this? They do this by instituting a bill that will promote widespread fraud and illegal voting. Under this bill, there's automatic registration of anybody if you get a driver's license, if you get a welfare payment, if you get an unemployment payment, if you attend a public university. Now, everyone knows there are millions of illegal aliens who have driver's licenses, who are getting welfare benefits, who attend public universities. This bill is designed to register every one of those illegal aliens. General Rokita, what would the impact be in state elections of automatically registering millions of illegal aliens to vote?
Well, despite the cost and everything in the system, it would dilute the votes of every citizen who is supposed to be voting. So they want voter turnout. They want more people to participate, and you cannot vote in this country unless you're a United States citizen in a federal election.
And the bill explicitly says if an illegal alien is registered to vote under its provisions, even though it's illegal for him to vote, that illegal alien will not be liable. So it anticipates, the Democrats here anticipate, and their desired effect is to register millions of illegal aliens. Is that correct, General Rokita?
Yes.
But it's not just illegal aliens. This bill is designed to get criminals to vote. A great many states across this country prohibit felons from voting. This bill strikes down all those laws. This bill says if you're a murderer, if you're a rapist, if you're a child molester, we, the Democrats, want you voting. every one of those state laws is struck down. Is that right, General Rokita?
That's correct. And if they don't get their way, then they sue the state, as I referenced in my earlier answer.
So apparently the Democrats have determined that if millions of illegal aliens get to vote, if millions of criminals get to vote, that will benefit Democrats because they understand that criminals and illegal aliens are much, much more likely to vote for Democrats. Is that correct?
Yes.
In the wake of the November elections, one of the safest in recent history, Republican-led state legislatures have seized on the former president's big lie that the election was stolen and introduced more than 250 bills in 43 states aimed at tightening voting rules under the guise of election integrity. Instead of doing what you should be doing when you lose an election in a democracy, attempting to win over those voters in the next election, Republicans instead are trying to disenfranchise those voters. Shame on them. In Iowa, where college students often rely on the flexibility provided by early and mail-in voting, the Republican legislature voted to cut early voting by 9 days, close polls an hour earlier, and tighten rules on absentee voting. In Wisconsin, where urban and rural precincts face vastly different administrative burdens, Republicans have proposed limiting ballot drop boxes to only one municipality, no matter what its size. Could be 10,000 voters in a rural Republican county or 500,000 voters in an urban Democratic county, one ballot drop box. In Arizona, no fewer than 22 separate measures to limit voting rights have been introduced, including a bill to require every absentee ballot to be notarized. How are poor people going to pay for a notary when there's virtually no indication of fraud?
Schumer's question was, he was wondering why on Sundays Georgia would not participate in an electoral process of gathering signatures, of registration and things on Sunday. And I would just like to respond to that. Georgia's a southern state just like Mississippi. I cannot speak for Georgia, but I can speak for Mississippi on why we would never do that on a Sunday or hold an election on a Sunday. You know, this is our currency. This is a dollar bill. This says, the United States of America, in God we trust. Etched in stone in the U.S. Senate chamber is in God we trust. When you swore in all of these witnesses, the last thing you said to them in your instructions was, so help you God. In God's word in Exodus 20:18, it says, remember the Sabbath and keep it holy. So that is my response to Senator Schumer.
Turnout in 2020 was up 7%. The turnout in the 2020 election was the highest since 1900. States are not engaging in trying to suppress voters whatsoever. This is clearly an effort by one party to rewrite the rules of our political system. But even more immediately, it would create an implementation nightmare, as Senator Blunt pointed out, that would drown state and local officials who run elections. This proposal needs all the scrutiny it can get, and I'm glad we're all here to give it that scrutiny. This legislation would forcibly rewrite the election laws of all 50 states from here in Washington. Popular policies like voter ID requirements would be banned unless states neutered them with loopholes. Meanwhile, unpopular and absurd practices like ballot harvesting, where paid political operatives can show up carrying stacks of other people's ballots.
I take exception to the comments that you just made, Mr. Rokita, that public concern regarding the integrity of the recent election is born of anything but a deliberate and sustained misinformation campaign led by a vain former president unwilling to accept his own defeat, who rather than observing the sacred tradition and necessary process of a peaceful transition of power for a losing candidate for the presidency, undertook a scorched earth effort to undermine public confidence in the integrity of our elections that was so dramatic and so destructive that it culminated in a violent assault on the United States Capitol.
The Act is the right remedy at the right time. This bill recognizes that the best solution to abolishing the undemocratic trinity of issues plaguing our democracy, gerrymandering, voter suppression, dark money, is to get rid of all of them at once. By creating a baseline of protection for voters, rooting out corruption and dark money, and ending the practice of partisan gerrymandering, this Congress can create a fair, level playing field in our electoral system. This bill also makes evident that Congress should pass the John Lewis Voting Rights Advancement Act, which would update the formula for determining which jurisdictions are subject to federal pre-clearance. Now, taken together, the For the People Act and the John Lewis Voting Rights Advancement Act represent the greatest pieces of civil rights legislation since 1965 and are badly needed reforms that will strengthen our democracy. Now, despite what opponents may say, this bill would not favor either party. To the contrary, it would create a level playing field for the American people. The reality is that no matter what political party you support or what policies you advocate, your voice will be stronger if politicians are required to be responsive to your needs. Now is the time for Congress to exercise its constitutional authority to protect the structure of our representative democracy. Ensuring a true representative democracy is how we advance equality, opportunity, and justice in areas where too many Americans are still let down, left out, and left behind.
All right, folks, the For the People Act, of course, passed the House in March and is the Democrats' answer to the Republican war on voting. More than 250 bills to curtail access to the ballot have been introduced in 43 states. This bill expands voting access through policies like automatic and election day registration and universal mail-in voting and block voting restrictions like new voter ID laws and discriminatory voter purges. D.D. Hawkins-Hagler, former Georgia State Representative, will be joining us along with Kelly Bethea, Communications Strategist, Mustafa Santiago Ali, Ph.D., former Senior Advisor for the Environmental Justice EPA as well. And so glad to have all three of you here. Let's start with you first, D. Hawkins. I'm sorry, D. Dawkins. This is very interesting. Sitting there, Ted Cruz, it's going to be voter fraud. Donald Trump had an entire panel, an election commission. Voter fraud they found? Zero. The most substantive voter fraud that we have seen in America in the last decade took place by Republicans in North Carolina that was so scandalous, they threw the election results out and had a second election. D?
But you're absolutely right, Roland, and thank you for having me. I mean, what they are trying to do is gaslight their constituency base. It is unfounded, all of the accusations they have made, and it is really quite pathetic what they are doing at the United States Capitol. I mean, it's very egregious. How dare they try to make it seem like we are trying to steal elections when we know. First of all, you had it in North Carolina, and then even in Georgia, between all the purging of votes and now all of these bills that they're trying to get passed in these 43 states. It is just downright disgusting. And I, for one, hope that they do away with the filibuster in the Senate so we can get on with For the People Act and the John Lewis Advancement Act, with Voting Rights Act. We got to get on with the business at hand and stop placating to Republicans who don't really care about anyone but themselves.
The thing here, Mustafa, is to listen to this righteous indignation is beyond laughable. It's beyond laughable because they know they're lying. They know it's voter suppression. They know exactly what they're doing. And they want to sit here and, oh my God, it is going to allow the illegal aliens to vote and all of that. They have not found a scintilla of evidence of voter fraud, and all of these so-called election integrity units are all trash.
It's been trash since, Chris Kobach and the commission tried to prove, and so many of us came out and pushed back against them across the country, and they wasted millions of dollars. The Republicans know that they're in trouble. They know they're in trouble because the demographics in our country is changing. They're in trouble because they can't get policy right. If you actually created policies that resonated with folks, then they would come to your party and they would support it. You know, there were so many things in that clip that we watched that were so wrong. You know, let's just correct a couple of things real quick. First of all, the Sabbath is on Saturday. If you have any theologian history in your background, then you know that the Jewish Sabbath is on Saturday. You know, and then also, you know, it's interesting that we are supposed to be the beacon of democracy for the world. And we love to rush to another country when they are falling short in that space. But when it comes to our own country, instead of standing up for democracy, trying to strengthen democracy, making sure that everyone actually has the opportunity to vote by making sure that they're automatically registered and they can opt out if they didn't want to, Republicans are not interested in that. Republicans are interested in holding on to power and to creating policy that does not represent the whole country, but just those individuals that they see value in. And that's the reason that they find themselves in the moment that they do, where they are losing ground. They looked at, you know, ALEC and the Heritage Fund for years. We've talked about this on the show before, have been putting together, you know, these strategies on how to hold on to power. And now in this moment, they're realizing that this is their last gasp. This is their last effort in being able to hold on to that power. Now, the question is, what are Democrats going to do? So as Dee just shared with folks, if you are willing to allow them to continue to play these games, to create false narratives, you are setting yourself up to not be able to move forward on any of those very ambitious and needed sets of actions and goals that you have shared with the country and the reason people came out and voted for you. So, I mean, if you're not going to go ahead and deal with what's necessary to deal with in relationship to the filibuster, and you're going to let these folks to continue to get up in front of America and create these false narratives without being checked, then we're going to end up getting what we get.
The thing here, Kelly, is that when you listen to all of these Republicans, and again, as Schumer said, yo, if y'all want to compete with ideas, but don't try to rig the process. We're going to discuss it in the next segment. But in Georgia, they literally are trying to get rid of runoff weekend voting. I mean, they're sitting in rooms. When did black people vote? So in North Carolina, when the laws were declared unconstitutional, the Republicans in North Carolina literally said, when do black people vote early? 70% of African Americans vote early during the first week of early voting. Okay, so we're going to restrict early voting to one location per county the first several weeks and then expand it later on. They literally put it on paper. I ain't fooled by these white Republicans. They don't want black people to vote. They are simply playing a Jim Crow playbook. And if you're Tom Cotton or Ted Cruz and Mitch McConnell, don't call us racist, well, don't act like racist. Kelly?
I mean, this entire scheme is rooted not just in racism, but in whiteness specifically. And by the examples that you just stated, it proves that, right? So for me, it's really just frustrating and expected for Ted Cruz to basically gaslight an entire meeting's worth of senators saying that, these illegal aliens are going to be voting. Everybody who's not supposed to be voting is going to be voting, as opposed to changing the policy that Republicans frankly need to do in order to win. And as I said on your show before, Republicans have been losing this game of garnering American support for a very long time. Why? Because it's rooted in racism and whiteness. But instead of changing the players within the party, they want to change the game altogether. Because that's the only way they're going to win and preserve the whiteness that is the Republican Party at this point. So, like you said, we're going to talk about it in the next segment, but in Georgia, they're doing the same thing in Georgia. They're doing it all throughout the Bible Belt. And for anyone to say that this is not rooted in Jim Crow, I think Stacey Abrams said last week, this is Jim Crow in a suit. It's not going to outright say, let's block out Black vote. But that's exactly what it's doing. For the woman senator to outright say something along the lines of, we're not doing this on Sunday because we got to protect the Sabbath. Well, that's a crock of bull, because the Sabbath is on Saturday for many people, including white people who are Seventh Day, as well as Jewish people and other people who celebrate the Sabbath on a Saturday. But they're not talking about getting rid of it on a Saturday. They're only talking about it on Sunday because that's when a majority of Black people exercise that right. So when you look at it, it is not anything more than Jim Crow. It is not anything more than just reinstating whiteness, reinstating racism. And the Republican Party knows that, and it's on its last leg. It's up to this Senate and this Congress to take out the last leg altogether.
Just so folks understand how significant this is, let's go to Georgia, where we have been focusing on these massive voter suppression bills. Senate Bill 202, House Bill 531, both being rushed through the Georgia legislature, folks. And they're trying to dance around this in terms of what it looks like. Joining me now to talk about what this would mean for voters is, again, where this is going nationally, is it Aklima Kondoker?
Yes, it is.
Okay,
Thank you.
Georgia State Director of All Voting is Local. Glad to have you on the show. Let's get right to it. Again, Republicans, they are trying to say, oh, no, we're not cutting back on early voting. But the reality is you see what they're doing. I mean, and so they're playing games here, and they're trying to keep as many people from knowing about this. They're rushing it through. No real hearings. And this is why Black Voters Matter, as we say to the business community, y'all have got to step up.
That's absolutely right. There's been no transparency throughout this entire process. We haven't seen a fiscal note. We haven't seen a racial impact analysis to show that there is some thoughtfulness behind any of these bills. The only thing that we see is they are rushing through passing these bills on supposed claims of issues surrounding our elections, unsubstantiated claims with no evidence, no research, no data to make clear that there is something rooted in fact pushing these bills. We understand that since we saw turnout soar in the Black community over our runoff elections and over our general elections, this pushed and really informed a lot of the legislation that we're seeing now. We're seeing direct attacks against Black voters and direct attacks in counties where we have a majority Black community that now will suffer under these new bills.
And the thing that is even more laughable from Republicans on this one, and how silly they are, is that they have no proof. All of this fraud. No, the only fraud is you lost. They literally can't handle losing. Let's go back 2016. Donald Trump lost the Iowa caucus to Ted Cruz. What did Donald Trump say? Rigged. They fell for the okie doke.
Exactly. And in Georgia, we're not falling for it. That's why you have groups like Black Voters Matter, groups like All Voting is Local out here trying to keep the public informed because they're doing everything under the cover of darkness. I say this because SB 202 was originally a 2-page document. And then on Friday, we received a leaked document that was over 90 pages. And then all of a sudden, they pushed it through this week, pushed it out of the chamber into rules, and now it's headed for a floor vote that we suppose is going to happen tomorrow. And everything that's in that bill is nothing but prohibitions and restrictions on voting. It will make it more difficult for people to use a drop box. It will eliminate a lot of the days that people have to request their ballot and to send it back. For working folk, for people who are rural voters, for folks that don't have the time to figure out when they need to do things, because Georgia is accustomed to having a lot more time, 180 days to request your absentee ballot, now shaved down to about 77. Now, that is intentional because we know that most people find this entire process murky, it's untenable to people, and we know that access to information is really difficult for rural voters when everything is available online. And we also know that there is a very important mayoral race happening in November, the Atlanta mayoral race. And so if we plot all these points and we take them all together, we know this is a direct attack against Black voters because we know who will use drop boxes. We know who counts on having extended time to return their absentee ballots. And we know who will be who will show up for those elections in November. It's a direct attack.
Absolutely. Again, we'll be following this and keep putting pressure, letting people know exactly what's going on. We appreciate it. Keep fighting. We appreciate it. Thanks a lot.
Thank you for having me.
All right, folks. Again, don't just ignore what's going on here, folks. What we're dealing with is real, and trust me, Republicans, they see the train that's coming down the tracks. It sickens them that they lost Pennsylvania, Michigan, Wisconsin, Georgia, and Arizona. They want to suppress votes in Arizona because of Latinos. That's why they're challenging the Section 2 of the Voting Rights Act went to the Supreme Court. They're pissed off with Black voters in Georgia. They're mad as hell with Black voters in Philadelphia. They're mad as hell with Black voters in Detroit. They're mad as hell with Black voters in Milwaukee. You know why? Guess who's not running for re-election in 2022? Pennsylvania Senator Pat Toomey. That's why they're trying to change even the election of the state Supreme Court, because they want to break it up into districts to do gerrymandering. They don't like the fact that the state Supreme Court in Pennsylvania is elected statewide. Follow me here, y'all. If you elect the Supreme Court justices statewide, that means all voters count. That means you cannot have these hardcore Republican conservative enclaves that will guarantee them seats on the state Supreme Court. Are y'all seeing a pattern here? Oh, why is it that they are mad at the Pennsylvania Supreme Court? Because the Pennsylvania Supreme Court are the ones that ruled against political gerrymandering. The Pennsylvania Supreme Court are the ones that ruled against Republicans when it came to voting in 2020 election. That's why they are mad at the Supreme Court. So let's mosey on over to Michigan. Y'all know what happened in the last election in Michigan? The Michigan voters passed a law that created an independent commission to redraw political lines in Michigan. Guess what the Republicans did? They said, we're just going to ignore the will of the voters. See what's going on? Let's go to Wisconsin. Democratic governor, Democratic lieutenant governor. They have so politically gerrymandered districts in Wisconsin, that even if Democrats win 55% of all votes, they are still in the minority. Why do you think Donald Trump had a partial recount in Wisconsin? He didn't spend the money for a full recount. He did a partial recount. Where did he target? Milwaukee. Wow. What's so unique about Milwaukee? Black people. Now let's go back to Michigan. In Michigan, do y'all remember when the election person said, let's count all of the votes in Michigan except Detroit? What is it about Detroit? Something don't smell right. What? Oh, black people. And then Donald Trump said we can't count the votes in Fulton County. What's in Fulton County, Atlanta. What does Atlanta mean? Black people. So D, when Republicans all of a sudden want us to believe that they care about free and fair elections, what they're actually doing is no different than what white folks did in Selma and Birmingham and Montgomery and Mississippi and Tennessee and Louisiana and Arkansas and Florida, is to say we have got to stop black people from voting.
Absolutely. And they're going to continue. And they think that we are ignorant, but we're not. And so we have to continue to press our claim. And they didn't just start this this year or last year trying to suppress the vote. They have been doing this since the beginning of time, and especially over the last 10 years, as they saw that the demographics have been changing in a lot of these places. And so with the redistricting, we saw this in 2001. In 2011, and now in 2021, they are playing the same games, gerrymandering. And so even here in Georgia, what's going to happen is we are going to have the majority vote Democrats, and we're going to have the least amount of seats because they have set up a system, unless, you know, the Justice Department speaks up and does something about it, they're going to push this thing all the way through. And that's why they gutted the Voting Rights Act and got rid of Section 3 and 4 and are attacking Section 2 because they know what they're doing. It's very methodical. It's on purpose. And we have to be even ever more vigilant. And we can't play catch up with them because let's be clear about it. The whole absentee ballot game, the Republicans created that and they used it to their benefit. But once we understood what was happening, we turned around, used it for our benefit, and now they're moving the goalposts. That's what they do every time Black people try to understand the tricks that they're playing, and we use it to our benefit. They change the rules of the game. And so we've got to be even more vigilant and be more offensive instead of defensive as well, because this is some crazy stuff that's going on right now. Next, they'll be giving us poll taxes and literacy tests again, or asking us how many bubbles are in a bar of soap. That's the trajectory of where this is heading right now.
Well, actually, Mustafa, when you begin to require people to spend money just to be able to vote, when you put it in the law that they must get a notary for your application, that is a poll tax. Notaries are, the bill does not say that notaries are free. So if you have to go get your ballot, your absentee ballot notarized, you have to pay for that. That is a poll tax.
It most definitely is a poll tax. And, you know, most folks are living on the margins, you know, just trying to keep the lights on and put some food on the table. And if you have to make a decision about that or being able to vote, some folks may choose not being able to vote. So they know, they're very clear what they're doing. You know, Republicans are waking up in the nighttime talking about, I see black and brown people, like it's a movie, because they know what's coming. And they know that they have to do everything that they can. And in Georgia, you know, it's interesting that they know that if they lose Georgia, there goes the South, right? If they're not able to change the laws, they know that they're on the cusp of losing North Carolina. They know that Florida is within the grasp of people actually getting focused, getting some resources down there to make sure that the brothers and sisters on the ground trying to get people registered and stuff have what they need. They know that they could very easily begin to lose the South. So they're putting everything that they got right now into Georgia, trying to make change happen in a negative way there so that they can begin to try and make sure that they're holding on to the South. So that's what that game is. But I hope they wake up every night saying that I see black and brown people. I hope they wake up in sweats, you know, because of this voter suppression that they're doing, knowing that people are wise to what's going on and that they're not going to give up and that they're going to push. And as Dee said, I like following Dee tonight because she said something that's super important. Department of Justice, what are you going to do? What are you going to do, Department of Justice? Because you have the ability to get in there and to make sure that we are holding people accountable. Of course, we got to have the Senate do the right thing also.
Kelly, final comment.
No, I agree with everything here, but it is clear to me that the Republicans are losing the game. And what happens when you lose the game and you feel like you have no other way out? You cheat. And that is exactly what Republicans are doing right now. And it is so contradictory, the fact that Republicans in the Senate right now are basically acting like the minority in that, you know, they want to preserve the filibuster. They want to preserve their right as minorities in the Senate. But when it comes to the minorities of this country, they are doing everything within their power to take away the rights that we have, the privileges that we have, everything that is American in a vote, they are trying to take away. Voting should not be the hardest thing an American does. It should frankly be the easiest. That is what Democrats are trying to do. They are trying to provide access to voting for every American. It is not reserved for just rich white men like it was in 1775. It is 2021 now, and we have other people in the game. We have Black women, we have Black people, we have white women, we have everybody in the game. And everybody in the game right now has a stake in this country now. So everybody needs to have a say. And Republicans see that. And the problem is they don't want that to be a reality. So what do? They change their reality. At least they attempt to change the reality and try to basically go back to 1775 in that only rich white men have the power to change anything in this country. That's not going to be the case anymore. It is never going to be the case again if we step up, if we fight for our rights, and if we support those who actually see what's going on and are doing something about it, such as the Senate, such as Congress, such as your local legislatures, such as in Georgia. Because I forgot who said it first, but once Georgia's gone, that's the Bible Belt. So this is a moment in time where it really is do or die.
Well, so they'll still have. I mean, reality is, yeah, they're afraid of North Carolina becoming like to some degree like Virginia, even though Virginia is all blue. That's not going to happen there. But what they're afraid of, if Democrats are able to consistently win Virginia, North Carolina, and Georgia, they have to lock the South. Mm-hmm. The only way they win is if they lock the South. What that does is that creates the opportunity for Democrats to win other states. That's what they are afraid of. And so, folks, we're going to keep pressing this issue. Got to go to a break when we come back. Maryland finally steps up and ends this long battle that HBCUs have been having there. When the governor signed a $577 million bill, we will explain that victory next on Roland Martin Unfiltered.
Georgia lawmakers have unleashed an all-out attack on voting rights this year, including through the introduction of more than 80 anti-voting bills since the legislative session began in January. Two of the worst voter suppression bills in the nation right now are SB 202 and HB 531, and they are rapidly moving through a flawed and non-transparent process in the Georgia General Assembly. It should come as no surprise that these bills are a reaction to increased participation by Black voters. That context is critical to understanding the purpose and impact of these voter suppression bills. Georgia lawmakers want to restrict voting access by significantly restricting the use and availability of secure drop boxes, by restricting the ability for voters to cast provisional ballots, and by adding new ID requirements for absentee voting. They're also seeking to allow for unlimited voter challenges, which is particularly troublesome given that just this past January 2020 runoff, tens of thousands of Georgia voters were subjected to baseless, untimely, and potentially discriminatory voter challenges. Georgia lawmakers want to criminalize people for giving out free food and water to voters who are standing in extremely long lines, can last anywhere from 2 to 5 to even 10 hours. The NAACP Legal Defense Fund is in partnership with a coalition of on-the-ground partners, including Black Voters Matter, All Voting is Local, and fair fight to push back on SB 202 and HB 531. If you live in Georgia, please call the Georgia General Assembly line and ask to be connected to your representative. Tell them to vote against SB 202 and against HB 531. If you live outside of Georgia, you can still help by contacting your U.S. senators and asking them to support H.R. 1, the For the People Act. Please call your elected officials today and join us in the fight to protect voting rights.
Hi, I'm Gavin Houston.
Hey, what's up, y'all? It's your boy Jacob Lattimore, and you're now watching Roland Martin right now.
For years, HBCU advocates in Maryland have been fighting that state to secure proper funding for the schools. In the original lawsuit, they contend that the state of Maryland allowed HBCUs to create specialty programs that were attracting white students. They have then allowed the predominantly white institutions to duplicate those programs at their institutions, which then drew those white students and black students away from HBCUs to those predominantly white institutions. That was the basis of the lawsuit. This has been going on, y'all, for 15 years. Last session, they passed the bill. Governor vetoed it, while letting the bill go through to rebuild the racetrack in Baltimore. Well, today, after the legislature again passed the bill, led by the Maryland Black Caucus, Governor Larry Hogan signed the measure into law, providing $577 million over a decade to the state's 4 HBCUs. This is Governor Hogan.
I want to thank all the presidents of our HBCUs for joining us today for this important occasion. Especially pleased to be here with Senate President Bill Ferguson and Speaker Adrian Jones. I'm happy to have the Lieutenant Governor here with us today and a number of our distinguished legislators. This is an important occasion, and we're here today to enact an historic bipartisan measure that will be an unprecedented step forward in addressing inequities in our higher education system by making substantial investments in Maryland's historically black colleges and universities. In our past 7 budgets, we have funded historically black colleges and universities at historically high levels, providing more than $2.2 billion in state support. No administration in the history of the state has ever invested more in our HBCUs. And our administration has advanced more than $1 billion in major projects at all 4 HBCUs, including the new Communication, Arts, and Humanities building right here at Bowie State. This legislation that we're signing into law here today will provide even more critical investments for all of these institutions. And it brings to an end a more than 15-year-long legal battle that we inherited and that we've spent years working hard to try to resolve in a fair and equitable manner. With our economy recovering and our much improved fiscal situation, I'm very pleased that we are now able to take this historic action. With the signing of this important legislation into law, together, I believe that we're sending a very clear message that we can work together in a bipartisan way and deliver real results. And together, we are all ensuring that any student in Maryland who wishes to pursue a degree will have access to world-class programs and the highest quality institutions for many years to come.
Unless the governor tells us so.
Wonderful.
All right, done deal.
Mission accomplished.
Now you're supposed to clap.
Joining me now, Delegate Charles Sitnor of Baltimore County, as well as Dr. Anthony Jenkins, president of Coppin State University, and Dr. Heidi Anderson, president of the University of Maryland Eastern Shore. Glad to have all of you here. Delegate Sitnor, I want to start with you. First of all, we've had Democrats and Republican governors who have not done right by HBCUs. Maryland fought this lawsuit consistently. They did not want to pay the money during the trial. One particular expert said that really it should have been $2 billion that was granted to these institutions over what they were asking for. And that was at one point when the Governor Larry Hogan, was it 100 or 200 million, where he said, that's it, I'm not doing anything more. That is my red line. What was the number?
It was 200.
It was 200 million. The four institutions were supposed to share over a 10-year period. Dude, really? That was not significant. But the Black Caucus used that power to say no. And look, we were there in Annapolis, held a rally there. I have discussed this on my TV One show, on this show, the Lawyers Committee for Civil Rights Under Law. Folks have been out here. This was important to ensure the dollars went to HBCUs who did the right thing, but they were screwed by the state and these predominantly white institutions.
No, and again, look, thank you for having us on this evening and covering this important event. You're right. This is historic. It's something that has never happened before, and we're extremely grateful that we were able to get to this point through both houses and to get it to the governor as early as we did, so that if he had decided not to sign it, we were fully ready to override the veto. But we're thankful I believe he did the right thing. He explained why he felt that he was able to sign it. It is now the law of Maryland. So our next look is to make certain that our Attorney General and the plaintiffs sign this settlement agreement so that, prior to, I believe it's June 1st, so that we can get these schools their just due.
This is important, and just so everybody understand, because y'all are employees of the state, and that is to Dr. Jenkins and Dr. Anderson, y'all are not involved in this in terms of weighing in either way. But I'm quite sure, Dr. Anderson, that you were happy to see people standing up fighting on behalf of Maryland's 4 HBCUs.
Definitely, Roland. I think that's very critical. And it's not just people. We've had 15 years of individuals standing up fighting for this. Former students, former faculty, former administrators, former legislators, senators, delegates, a number of individuals have worked very, very hard to bring us to this point. And I think Dr. Jenkins would agree with me, with both of us being the 2 new presidents here in coming to these particular schools. We stand on their shoulders. They did a lot of the hard work. And it's kind of like running a race. They were carrying the baton and they carried it to this particular point. And now it's our job to carry it forward and make sure we continue to sustain these institutions.
Dr. Jenkins, on that particular point, what people who did not follow this lawsuit didn't quite understand, HBCUs got creative. They literally created programs that would attract students that nobody else was doing and were successful at it. And then the predominantly white institutions said, we like that. We're going to duplicate those programs. And look, it's no knock on your institution, Coppin State. It's no knock on University of Maryland Eastern Shore or Bowie State or Morgan State. But the reality is, when an individual goes, well, wait a minute, if I could get my degree from the University of Maryland and I could go to this larger campus and look at all the amenities and things along those lines, I'm going to blow past the HBCUs. The HBCUs created a way to be competitive, and the state allowed these institutions to essentially steal the creative programming and steal those students. That's what this money is rectifying.
Yeah, Roland, listen, you're absolutely correct. And I want to thank you for having us. I want to thank Senator Signor for his work and his efforts, as well as, the entire Maryland General Assembly. And I want to thank the governor for signing this. I think that, today we got it right. Maryland is on the right side of history. The governor is on the right side of history. And, we can debate about what got us here or what took so long. We are here now. And I think your point is a very poignant one. It is no secret that HBCUs have been innovative for centuries. And we have been doing great things and educating students that our historically white institution partners would not have admitted into their doors. And so when you take an institution like Coppin on our very diverse, dynamic campus, we have students who are the first in their family to go to college, and maybe they didn't come from the best backdrop. But what we do with those students is we provide the right wraparound support services. And on the same campus, we also have students who are the valedictorians of their high school. And we take both those students and we transform them into scholars. To your point, when you have larger institutions who are better funded, better resources, better amenities, and better scholarship packages, they can lure those students away from the HBCUs. It's not a referendum on the HBCU from the student or their parents' perspective, but clearly, if you can receive more institutional aid and have to borrow less, if the brick and mortar facilities that you are in are world-class, state-of-the-art, students and parents vote with their feet. Now, over the last decade or so, Coppin State, UMES, Bowie, Morgan, we have been able to make inroads in those areas, but we still are not brick and mortar, building for building, pound for pound with our historically white institution partners. And so your point, I think, is a very important one, and it's one that we have to continue to look at. The academic programs, very quickly, that we offer at our institution, for it to be duplicated elsewhere, and scholarship dollars that we can't compete with comes with that, to me, that is a no-brainer. Students are simply going to move from either my institutions, our institutions, and move over to our historically white institution counterparts. And so this settlement allows us to push back on that sum. This is a wonderful start, but it still has not positioned us to make up for the decades of underfunding and so forth that institutions like Coppin State University has endured. But what we were given through the signing of this piece of legislation allows us to expand our academic enterprise, offer more student scholarships up front, hire more faculty, better train our faculty. And those are things that are important that ultimately impact retention and graduation rates.
Just so folks need to understand, if the HBCUs had taken that offer from Governor Larry Hogan, a delegate Sidnor, they would have gotten about $4 million a year each. This deal gets them 3 times that amount. Right. That's why the Black Caucus and the lawyers were saying, no, we're not going to accept that small money. And last year, y'all got it passed. The governor then vetoed it. And we talked, and I talked with other officials, and I said, and y'all agreed absolutely. When it comes back, make it clear to the other Democrats, hey, y'all ain't moving on nothing until we get to HBCU stuff straight.
And I'm grateful we didn't even have to go there, because from the very get-go, it was made clear from the House as well as my Senate president that this is going to be a priority for both houses. So there was no questioning. But during the interim, the only thing that really was a question is whether or not we were going to get back in enough time so that we could have a special session so that we could override the veto. But because we had this triggering language in that legislation and were unable to have that special session, that's why we went about doing things the way that we did. and there was no question. And really, like I said, over in the Senate, it came out unanimous. And so the president's all right. This signing of this bill is going to make certain that our institutions have a new programming that other schools don't have. And it's going to attract the students. It's going to have the money to make certain that those students have the type of financial aid that they need, and as well as money for faculty. And those are the kinds of things that make universities attractive. I was joking earlier today with the president of Bowie State, because they have this new program that they're offering dealing with visual effects and graphics and things and computer animation. And I told her, I said, my daughter is taking a program, so they may have some Bulldogs coming in the future. I mean, and it's those types of special programs that UMES is going to be able to do. Coppin is going to be able to do, Morgan as well as Bowie, and we're super excited to be here today to celebrate what happened.
And again, when we talk about all this, Dr. Anderson, for your institution, with this infusion of capital, what is it going towards?
Well, to begin with, Roland, and I want to, like my counterpart, thank our delegates and also especially the Speaker of the House as well for all the efforts they put through for this. But the monies, first of all, are going to go for scholarships for our students. And as President Jenkins has pointed out, and we will be doing the same, this will strengthen our being able to attract students to the institution. But the other place we're going to use the funding for is to strengthen some of our existing programs. We have criminal justice, we have cybersecurity, we have the only four-year BS degree in aviation sciences in the state of Maryland. And so we will be able to put out more aviation scientists and pilots and individuals who work at the airports. But in addition to that, it's going to help us work on solving some of the problems that impact the people in the state of Maryland, and especially people in our communities of color. For example, we have 9 health care professional programs at this time. We're the only HBCU in the country that has 9 health professional programs, and this is going to allow us to expand those health professional programs. So think about this. We have pharmacy already. We have physical therapy. We have physician assistant, and we have a host of others. Our newest healthcare programs is sports management. This is going to allow us to look at medical and expand that, and then have team-based learning in an interprofessional way. Imagine us graduating a more diverse healthcare population to students who can go into the workforce in our communities and serve our people. That's going to be critical. The other thing it's going to allow us to do is grow in areas, new particular areas that we haven't been in before, with our School of Agriculture and Natural Sciences. And the food insecurity problems that are impacting many of our people, we're going to be able to do high-level research in those areas. We're going to help solve some of the problems of what's happening with seafood and food insecurity. And so those are the things that's going to happen, not just for our students, but also for the citizens of the state of Maryland.
And of course, Doc, what's going to be happening with the money at Coppin State?
You know, pretty similar. Thanks, Roland. You know, we are looking at expanding our academic enterprise. You know, what we're having the conversation now is how do we take our liberal arts foundation and how do we pivot and create these 21st century high STEM academic programs? Those programs cost more to produce. The faculty to teach in those programs costs more. So we are going to be looking at how we expand our cybersecurity and engineering, looking at our College of Business, looking at our social work program, our psychology programs. Forbes just listed us as having one of the best psychology programs in the entire nation. Our nursing program is very strong. We produce more African-American nurses than any HBCU in the state. And so we want to expand on that, looking at not only more brick and mortar opportunities at the undergraduate and graduate level, but also online education. We are also looking at how we can better package our students and attract students and make sure that we push down the cost of education. We want to ensure that more students leave our institution with less debt. And so these dollars are going to allow us to help do that. And Roland, one of the things that also is important for us is that we roll out a better branding and marketing campaign that educates family on the cost of education and the pathways to getting to us, that ultimately allows them to create greater
Roland, can I jump in and add something?
And enhance the quality of their life.
Dr. Anderson, go ahead.
Yes, President Jenkins just made me think of something I forgot to mention. One of the areas that we're going to expand in, I'm sorry, guys. We've been talking about and exploring having another veterinary science program at our university. And think about that. It's only one other veterinary science medicine program in an HBCU in the country, and that's at Tuskegee. This will do great wonders for our farmers here. But the other thing I wanted to add is our partnerships that we're creating from high school through community college to students at UMES, that's going to shorten the time to degree for those students. And look, we're looking at students of color coming from that particular pathway all the way through UMES and getting out of the workforce a lot quicker. Sorry to interrupt you there, President Jenkins.
No, listen, that's great. Listen, at the end of the day, Roland, what this does is it strengthens the opportunity for us to educate more Black and brown people. We can, we already know that we have quality institutions and that we provide a high quality education that can attract any student. But access and opportunity, lifting that bottom quartile. If our city and state is going to grow and continue to prosper, it is that bottom quartile that all of our institutions, historically white and historically Black, have to make sure we are creating pathways for. In this country, if you come from a household of $30,000 or less, you have a 1 in 10 chance of earning a college education. I have families on the west side of Baltimore, where I'm located, that make less than $30,000 a year. So what do we say to those people? You don't deserve an opportunity for upward mobility? Well, that's nonsense. These dollars will allow us to help create those pathways so that we can educate more Marylanders so they can add to an educated citizenry and impact positively the economic prosperity of our state. So this is just bigger than Coppin. This is bigger than Morgan. It's bigger than Bowie. It's bigger than UMES. This is about our state doing the right thing and doubling down on making sure that we educate more of our citizens and we create opportunities for them to have jobs in Baltimore City, on the eastern shore of Maryland, and in Bowie, Maryland, Prince George County, and throughout the state. So I am pleased that we have taken this huge step in the right direction, and we're going to put our foot on the gas and keep it on the gas. And as we continue to prove that we can make a significant difference with these dollars, we're going to come back to our state legislature and ask for some more.
All right, then. Folks, as always, you always ask for more. I certainly appreciate it. Thank you so very much.
Thank you, Roland. Take care and be well.
Roland, thank you. And we want to invite you over to UMES when you get a chance.
Hey, look, here, all I'm going to say is...
We haven't had you over here, so
I know. All I'm saying is I did the Bowie State commencement. I did the Morgan State commencement.
One of those years that I've been here has been all in COVID. You weren't going to come in COVID.
I know. Y'all got the golf program down there at University of Maryland Eastern Shores. I've been playing golf for 34 years. Let a brother know.
Let's get on the course. How about that?
That ain't a problem.
Hey. All right. On my end either. So we owe you.
I want to make certain that I say thank you again for raising this issue and putting this out in front of this entire country. You didn't have to do it. You didn't have to come out last year to that rally. So it is I'm extremely appreciative of your efforts in amplifying what was happening here in Maryland. And I appreciate your brotherhood.
Well, I said at that rally, when I reached out to a bunch of civil rights folks, I said, my philosophy is the same one my man Denzel when he played Frank Lucas in American Gangster. I'm going to get that money. And so congratulations on y'all getting that money.
You. I want to thank our Black Caucus delegates again, and also the senator and the speaker. Thank you so much.
All right, y'all take care. Look forward to seeing you.
Thank you. Take care. Be well.
All right, then. Thanks a lot.
Thank you.
Folks,
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Thank you. Jury selection is complete in the murder trial of former Minneapolis police officer Dick Chauvin. It took about 2 weeks to select the jury. Opening statements are scheduled to begin on Monday. The court chose 15 jurors. 12 will sit on the jury, and 2 will be alternates. The final person chosen on Tuesday. An accountant will be dismissed next week if the other 14 show up. Here's the judge confirming the selection.
All right, we have 15. Obviously, just to reiterate, 14 will be seated. That's all we have room for. We could seat 15 if we had room, but 15th juror, as the last chosen, will be excused on Monday if the other 14. The whole point of this 15th juror was to make sure that we have 14 people show up on Monday. Nevertheless, I'm still not going to release the jury pool until the jury is sworn, on the off chance that we still have to pick some alternates. But I'm hopeful that since it's only a few days, that we'll have 14 people show up, and those 14 will be seated and sworn, and we'll proceed with opening statements at that time. Anything else for the record from the state?
No, thank you, Your Honor. No, Your Honor.
All right, we are in recess until Monday, March 29th at 9 a.m. Thank you.
All right, folks, and we, of course, we'll be live streaming that trial right here on Roland Martin Unfiltered. When we come back, I'll chat with Kelly and Dee about. I'm really getting a little tired of white women with no qualifications trying to talk about qualifications for jobs. Wait until I show y'all what Meghan McCain said today on The View. That's next on Roland Martin Unfiltered.
I believe that it's movement time again.
In America today, the economy is not working for working people.
The poor and the needy are being abused.
You are the victims of power, and this is the abuse of economic power.
I'm 23 years old. I work 3 jobs.
Work 7 days a week. No days off.
They're paying people pennies on the dollar compared to what they profit, and it is time for this to end.
Essential workers have been showing up to work, feeding us, caring for us, delivering goods to us throughout this entire pandemic, and they've been doing it on a measly $7.25 minimum wage.
The highest check I ever got was literally $291. I can't take it no more.
You know, the fight for 15 is a lot more than about $15 an hour. This is about a fight for your dignity.
We have got to recognize that working people deserve livable wages.
And it's long past time for this nation to go to 15 so that moms and dads don't have to choose between asthma inhalers and rent.
I'm halfway homeless.
The main reason that people end up in their cars is because income does not match housing cost.
If I could just only work one job, I could have more time with them.
It is time for the owners of Walmart, McDonald's, Dollar General, and other large corporations to get off welfare and pay their workers a living wage.
And if you really want to tackle racial equity, you have to raise the minimum wage.
We're not just fighting for our families, we're fighting for yours too.
We need this. I'm going to fight for it till we get it. I'm not going to give up.
We just need all workers to stand up as one nation and just fight together.
Families are relying on these salaries, and they must be paid at a minimum $15 an hour.
$15 a minimum. Anyone should be making this to be able to stay out of poverty.
I can't take it no more. I'm doing this for not only me, but for everybody. We need 15 right now.
Yo, what's up? This your boy Ice Cube.
What's up? I'm Lance Gross, and you're watching Roland Martin Unfiltered.
I've always said that it bugs the shit out of me that whenever we talk about qualified minorities, that we always use the qualifier qualified. Because whenever it's about white folks, nobody ever uses the words qualified. Today on The View, they were talking about Senator Tammy Duckworth blasting the Biden administration by saying, that they need to have more Asian American Pacific Islanders in the cabinet. Neera Tanden, who was nominated for the Office of Management and Budget, was rejected, had to pull her nomination because of opposition. And so Duckworth was raising the issue of why this was important. So they're talking about this on The View. And Meghan McCain makes this point that, quote, if there is somebody who is, quote, more qualified, who happens to be a white, straight person who has more experience in the field than a minority with less experience, why should it matter? See, that's always the case. When is the last time you heard somebody white like Meghan McCain say, damn, that white person really ain't qualified for that job? Every time it's a conversation about less qualified, they always frame it as the white person is always the more qualified person. When we know it's some mediocre-ass white people in government, in politics, in media, in corporate America, on Wall Street, on Main Street, all over. Play the clip of Meghan today, y'all.
Excluded women farmers. And so we're going to a place where even if people need money, even if people are qualified to get into Ivy Leagues, race and gender is more important than your skill qualifications, the content of your character. It is not what Martin Luther King Jr. preached. I think this is a very, very slippery slope. I was very surprised to hear someone like Tammy Duckworth say something like this. She got a lot of blowback from a lot of people, not just on the right. And I think this is actually just the natural progression of identity politics. And I will say, just to put a cap on this, The View is 25 years old next year. We've only had one Asian American co-host this show. So does that mean that one of us should be leaving at some point because there's not enough representation? We're talking about, is identity politics more important than qualifications of a job? And I think that's a question going forward that the progressive left is going to have to reconcile.
Okay, and before we go, because we're going to go and take a break, eventually we're going to come back and talk about the black farm.
Yep.
Let me deal with what you just heard from one of the most white, privileged women in America. I know Meghan McCain. I've been on her shows. When I was at CNN, she came on when I was guest hosting. She said she really liked my work. She follows me on Twitter. I follow her on Twitter. But let's just be real clear. The only reason Meghan McCain is on The View, the only reason she was a Fox contributor, the only reason before that she was at MSNBC, the only reason before that she had a syndicated radio host show, the only reason before that she had a show on another cable network is because her last name is McCain. And that her daddy was Senator John McCain. That's it. There is nothing, zero zilch, in Meghan McCain's resume that suggests that she has been qualified for any of these jobs. Again, any of them. Not one. I very rarely pull up Wikipedia. Go to my computer. Meghan Marguerite McCain is an American conservative, is an American conservative columnist, author, and television personality. She has worked for ABC News, Fox News, and MSNBC. It says the daughter of politician John McCain and businesswoman Cindy McCain. She has been a public figure. Give me 1 second. There we go. She's been a public figure for much of her life, first appearing at the 1996 Republican National Convention. She had a blog in 2007. She was a contributing writer for the Daily Beast, co-host on Outnumbered on Fox. Early life. Y'all, do y'all see this? This is her early life. After high school, she attended Columbia University, earned a bachelor's degree in art history in 2007. Originally planned to become a music journalist and intern at Newsweek and Saturday Night Live. Y'all, that is the extent of Megan's career. She wrote a blog and then began writing for the Daily Beast. Signed a 6-figure book deal. All this experience I'm looking at right here. Wrote a campaign memoir, Dirty Sexy Politics. Okay. Then all of a sudden, TV career. Had a talk show on Pivot, startup cable network. Analyst on MSNBC. Fox News, then The View. Megan, you are the epitome of a white woman who has used identity politics and your daddy's name to get major media jobs. And Megan, I can guarantee you that there are numerous black people, black women, numerous Latinas, numerous Asian women with far deeper resumes than you who were grossly qualified, overqualified for these jobs. Yet you got them. And then when you remark about identity politics, as if white identity politics has not led to jobs, how many people have been co-hosts on The View who were grossly unqualified, yet got there because of their name? Your girl, Abby Huntsman. I knew Abby at CNN. All the white bosses, oh my God, Abby is one of them. She's cute, she's gorgeous. Abby was not smart. And Abby went from CNN to a talk show host at MSNBC, went from MSNBC to Fox News, where Roger Ailes was quoted as saying, "We're going to teach her how to be a correspondent." I ain't never heard a white media executive say, "I think we're going to teach this black woman how to do TV." And went from that to the co-host of Fox and Friends on the weekends and parlayed that into The View. Them Bush girls who got hired over at the Today Show, grossly unqualified. Chelsea Clinton wasn't qualified to have her TV job. So please, Megan, if we're going to have this conversation about qualified, at least have the decency, Megan, to just say, hey, I'm a white woman who's gotten hooked up my whole life because of my daddy. I just want you to be honest. Because I can guarantee you, if that was a privileged black person, I'd say the same thing. And the same thing was said about Luke Russert. Luke is a great guy, But everybody knew Luke Russert only got the job at MSNBC because of his daddy. He had not put the time in to become a national correspondent. Why are we playing games here? Before I go to Kelly and Dee, let me add this. There have been some black people who have been saying that Alexi McCammond, who had to resign as the editor-in-chief of Teen Vote, that she wasn't ready for the job. But Jeff Zucker at 25 became executive producer of the Today Show. Mark Shapiro, in his 20s, became a high-ranking executive at ESPN. See, I always find it interesting. Y'all ever find it interesting that whenever we talk about young white people who have become high-ranking executives, don't nobody bring up their resume. Nobody bring up qualifications. The word qualified don't even come up. Yet when you're young and black, first of all, very few black people have gotten a shot that Alexi did at 27. See, we got to wait till we 35, 40, 45, 50, 55 before we finally get the shot. The new head coach of the Houston Texans is 65. You got white guys running around at 34 or 35 getting NFL head jobs. He had to wait till he's 65. So Megan, please, if you want to talk about identity politics, you had better include white women in that category and white men in that category, because this black man has seen for far too long a whole bunch of mediocre-ass white people get high-paying jobs and saluted and given awards, and they got the job because they are white. Dee?
Well, damn, you just said it all for us. I mean, you just hit the nail with the hammer, because let me tell you something, bro. First of all, that girl the only reason she's on The View is because of who she is. But let's also be very clear. America loves this European model of beauty and what they represent. Even when we're trying to get government loans or contracts, when white men couldn't get it because of identity politics, they just pull their white wives and daughters into the place to take it away from black women who have worked hard and done all the necessary things. And black women are still 24% behind white men in salary pay, even though we are the most educated people in the country now. That's what all the statistics say, that black women are getting advanced degrees more than anyone else, and it's still not enough. Black women are opening more small businesses more than anyone else, and it's still not enough. We can't get the government contracts because of white identity politics. So you said it all. I mean, what else is there to say? She's there because she's white.
Kelly, one of the most grossly untalented people is Tucker Carlson.
My God.
Tucker Carlson has had a show at PBS, MSNBC, CNN. He been hired everywhere, flamed out everywhere. You rarely gonna find somebody black in media get a second shot somewhere else after they didn't succeed the first time. I mean, we could walk through. If we walk through newsrooms across America, I could walk through a newsroom with my arms crossed and bump into untalented, unqualified white folks in major positions.
I mean, I live in D.C. You can just bump into them in the street here in D.C., frankly. It is beyond insulting, but also expected for someone like Meghan McCain to actually think that she's qualified to do something such as being a host on The View. For her to be so dense as to think that it is because of imaginary qualifications outside of her dad's name that she's on that show is simply absurd. She's literally talking to an EGOT recipient in Whoopi Goldberg about her being qualified to sit next to Whoopi Goldberg, like the caucasity of it all, right? Personally, as a young Black woman who has been in these spaces, it is, I can rattle off stories for days about how many times I've gone into a room, interviewed for a position, submitted a proposal, and actually see who they ended up going for. And it's either they are grossly underqualified or they just had the right name recognition. And the whole mantra of Black women, Black people having to work twice as hard to get only half the credit, now it feels like even a quarter of the credit because of these identity politics. Because people don't want to act like, you know, oh, I'm only doing it because you're Black, so let's make you work just a little harder so that you are now qualified to have this position, to have this opportunity. It's ridiculous. It is absolutely ridiculous.
I mean,
Megan is full of crap.
Again, what bothers me the most, and I want y'all to cue it up. Because see, I really want people to pay attention. I want so to do this here. I want y'all to get the split screen ready, and I want y'all to play the video of Megan on one side, and I want y'all to have me on the other side, and I'm gonna walk y'all through this. But I need y'all to listen to keywords that are being spoken by Megan in this 1 minute clip. Again, I need you to hear what happens when somebody is so clueless on this very issue. They have no idea. So I want y'all to play it and keep my audio up. Watch this, y'all.
Excluded women farmers. And so we're going to a place where even if people need money, even if people are qualified to get into Ivy Leagues, race and gender is more important than your skill qualifications, the content.
Pause. So we're going through this thing where race and gender is more important than your skill set. I'm sorry, Megan. Please show me in here. Oh, see, again, show me in here where Senator Tammy Duckworth said, Megan, pick somebody who doesn't have the skill set. She didn't say that. You just said where race and gender are more important than qualifications. Megan, you were literally picked because you were a white woman who's a conservative, not because of your qualifications. You literally are describing yourself in your criticism. Press play.
Of your character. It is not what Martin Luther King Jr. preached. I think this is a
Stop.
very...
This is not what Martin Luther King preached. So all of a sudden, we now want to have a conversation on what Martin Luther King preached. Megan, are you aware that Dr. King believed in the guaranteed income? Megan, are you aware that Dr. King called himself a socialist? I've heard you condemn socialism. So now all of a sudden, you, Megan, you want to now quote Dr. King because it fits your narrative, but you don't want to talk about the other stuff that Dr. King preached. So when you say, Megan, this is not what Dr. King preached, what exactly, Megan, did he preach? Did you hear one speech, Megan, of Dr. King? Or did you listen to any of his sermons? Press play.
Very slippery slope. I was very surprised to hear someone like Tammy Duckworth say something like this. She got a lot of blowback from a lot of people, not just on the right. And I think this is actually just the natural progression of identity politics.
Stop.
And I will say, just to put...
This is the natural progression of identity politics. Because Senator Tammy Duckworth said that we need more AAPI in the cabinet. Megan, how many white presidents have we had? How many white vice presidents have we had? In the history of the United States, Megan, How many white men have sat on the Supreme Court? 105, 106? Women, African Americans, Latinos have made up what? 6 of the 106? Something like that. Megan, how many white men and white women are Fortune 500 CEOs? Megan, how many white men and white women run newsrooms all across the country? Isn't it amazing when all of a sudden someone calls for the addition of 1 or 2 people of color? White women like yourself go, oh my God, this is the natural progression of identity politics. Megan, if African Americans, Latinos, Asian Americans, Native Americans, if we have been chosen based upon skill set, I can guarantee you, Megan, I can guarantee you there would be a hell of a lot more people of color in these positions because whiteness would not be the determinant based upon the person who's hiring. Press play.
A cap on this. The View is 25 years old next year. We've only had 1 Asian American co-host this show. So does that mean that one of us should be leaving at some point because there's not enough representation? We're talking about, is identity politics more important than qualifications of a job? And I think that's a question going forward that the progressive left is going to have to reconcile.
And right there, Megan, what you fail to even realize, Megan, is how white supremacy has worked in America. The fact that you, Megan, can't even acknowledge that whiteness has been the determinant for so many jobs in America up until this point is problematic. Megan, I dare you to walk through the executive suite at ABC News and count how many people of color you see. I dare you, Megan, to walk through the executive suites of Disney, the parent company of ABC, and count how many people of color that you see. If you do that, Megan, you might realize that there are very few. And see, how do we know that's a problem? Because, Megan, at the company that employs you, its top 2 bosses announced that they were leading the company-wide diversity committees because there have been so few. But see, that's what happens when you step outside of your whiteness. This is what happens, Megan, when you step outside of your rich white bubble and then begin to understand the reality of what a black journalist has had to endure to get to the table of The View. Actually have the conversation with Sonny Hostin. Go have the conversation with Whoopi Goldberg on what she had to go through to get to the table. Megan, Sonny and Whoopi didn't have the opportunity to be able to say, my daddy was a United States Senator, so therefore, hire me. Because that literally is the extent of your experience. If you, Megan, would be honest, and that's all I'm asking you, and I like you, Megan. We've always got along. But this is where there's a blind spot, Megan. It's a blind spot because you just went on national television railing against identity politics and saying it's going to be problematic for the left as if there's no identity politics that's on the right. Whiteness and white privilege is real, Megan. And if there were pictures in the dictionary to illustrate unqualified white women who have gotten major jobs on television, your picture would be there. Just admit it. We're going to break with Roland Martin Unfiltered. When we come back, we'll talk with Lieutenant Governor Justin Fairfax of Virginia about that state abolishing the death penalty.
Who needs a little love today? Who needs some love sent their way? Who needs love? Who needs love? Who needs a little love today? Who needs some love sent their way? Who needs love? Who needs love?
Hey, I'm Donnie Simpson. What's up? I'm Lance Gross, and you're watching Roland Martin Unfiltered.
Virginia, the state that has executed more people than any other in the country, has now abolished the death penalty. The bill was signed today into law by Governor Ralph Northam.
Today, Virginia becomes the first southern state to end this practice. We join 22 other states in saying the government will not take a life. The government will no longer execute people. Now, make no mistake, if you commit the most serious of crimes, you will be punished. But Virginia can do that without continuing a system that gets it wrong even once, and a system that doesn't work the same for everyone who encounters it. Justice and punishment are not always the same thing. That is too clearly evident in 400 years of the death penalty in Virginia. So today, Virginia takes an important step forward. And again, I thank everyone who has worked so hard to change this law.
Joining me now is Lieutenant Governor of Virginia, Justin Fairfax. Glad to have you back on Roland Martin Unfiltered.
Thank you so much, Roland. Really honored to be back with you.
This is a huge deal. It has been a long time coming for many people to be the first southern state to abolish the death penalty. And as the governor said there, if one person has been executed unfairly, that is one too many.
That's absolutely right, Roland. It's a monumental and an historic day here in Virginia and in our nation. As you know, Virginia has a 400-year history, not only of being the place where the first enslaved Africans were forced to land here, and a racism that runs through that entire 4th-century history, but a 400-year history of the implementation of the death penalty. And Virginia has, in its history, killed via the death penalty more people than any other state in the nation, over 1,400. And so today, it's a new day in Virginia. It's a new day in the South. It's a new day in America. And we are now adhering to our highest values. We're pushing forward toward progress. We're getting rid of the racist vestiges of our past and of our criminal justice system. We know the racism runs very deep. And as you mentioned, and Governor Northam said, to have one person be killed that was innocent is beyond a travesty. And we are now out of the business of taking life here in Virginia. And it is important for us to stand up and to recognize this moment for what it really means.
The thing that is always interesting is that so many pro-lifers talk about the sanctity of life, yet they are so blasé and uninterested when you've had black men and others who've been freed from death row after it was been proven that they did not commit the crimes. That right there should be enough for anyone to say, I cannot support the death penalty.
That's absolutely right. And we know that there is a long history of a lack of due process, of innocent people who are accused, charged, convicted, and then ultimately exonerated and found not to have committed the crime, many of whom have been sent to their deaths, and others awaiting a death sentence around the country. And frankly, it is repugnant to who we are. It is not who we should aspire to be as Americans. And, you hit on one of the key issues, that there is a deep, deep racial and racist bias when it comes to the death penalty and other aspects of our criminal justice system. We see that African Americans are several times more likely to be killed via the death penalty. And also, we know that there have been many, many African Americans, particularly African American men, who have been exonerated, who sat on death row, and whose life, some of them, their lives have already been taken. Some were in the process of being taken. And if that doesn't send shivers down the spine of everyone and become a clarion call as to why we need to get rid of the death penalty everywhere in America, then I don't know what else will.
And to that point, are you hopeful that this will spur other states to take a serious look at this? Illinois was one of the first that made it clear they were going to stop executing people. And again, every time we see one of these stories of a brother spending 20, 25, 30 years on death row, it's shocking. I'm from Texas, and I remember Clarence Brantley. I mean, he was literally within hours of being executed a couple of times, and was later determined that he did not kill the white cheerleader in Conroe, Texas. He was that close to being put to death, being murdered by the state. And that's what it is, being murdered by the state.
Right. That's right. And you mentioned Texas. We, of course, you have those stories everywhere you have the death penalty. We had Earl Washington here in Virginia, and so many other cases around our nation. Roland, if we don't recognize and change that history, then we're simply all doomed to repeat it. I don't know how many cases we have to have of many different types of people, but particularly African American men, over and over and over again, being wrongfully charged, wrongfully convicted, in some cases, executed or placed near execution. I mean, how many times do we have to go through that story until we decide that it must be different this time? And in Virginia, that's really the statement that we are making, that it must be and it will be different for the next 400 years in Virginia. They will be very different than the last 400 years. We're getting rid of the racist vestiges of that past, and we've got to do that throughout our entire criminal justice system. But we know that this is a big, huge step forward, and we want to recognize that, and hopefully this will spur that kind of change to eliminate the death penalty and abolish it everywhere around our nation. We've got to stand up with courage. It is critical to be able to make change, to first stand up for what is right, and not always what is popular. Sometimes you have to do things that go against the prevailing viewpoints at the time to get to where we can and should be. And that's really what today symbolizes in so many ways, the next 400 years of Virginia and of America and what's possible.
All right. Lieutenant Governor Justin Fairfax of Virginia, we certainly appreciate it. Thank you so very much.
Thank you, Roland. God bless you. Thank you so much.
Thank you very much. Kelly, this is a huge, huge move here. And as we said there, you just can't imagine. I cannot imagine I can't imagine being on death row for 25, 30 years and coming close to being put to death and you didn't do it. This guarantees that even if somebody is wrongfully convicted, the state can't screw up and put them to death.
Yeah, and that is key in this. Whether you support the death penalty or not, the fact of the matter is it is a flawed system in that we have a disproportionate amount of people on death row who are Black, who are wrongfully convicted, and as their time for their execution comes, that's when people, get on the ball and try and save their life and whatnot. It's not really like the 15 years prior. It's usually like in the 11th hour and 59th minute with things, with policies and laws rather, such as what Virginia just passed down today. Those situations, at least in that state, aren't going to happen. Lives will literally be saved. And it's something to be said that the state that housed the Confederate capital, the capital of the Confederacy, the antithesis of racism and the preservation of enslaved bodies in this country, that state is the state to abolish the death penalty. It needs to be said that other states that were not only in the Confederacy, but other states that still have the death penalty on the books also need to follow, because this isn't a matter of, eye for an eye. Until the policies are in place where everybody has a fair shot in making sure that those on death row actually deserve to be there, there doesn't need to be a death row, because otherwise it's just murder unnecessarily so at the hands of the state.
Dee, a couple Saturdays ago was the 36th anniversary of my grandfather's passing. And I was 15. And that actually, it was the first major death that I experienced. And that actually kicked in this fear of death. And it led to panic attacks. It just consumed me. And it's something that has never left me. And I remark all the time to people, death is death. This ain't Lazarus. This is not dead, I can come back a year later. It's finality.
Right.
That's it. And so for people who act as if, we should fight these things and no. I hear people, no, you've got to take them out, condemn them. I think there are clear examples where an individual is absolutely guilty, where we see it, they've admitted it. I mean, absolutely. But when I've seen these, Texas and North Carolina, Louisiana and Virginia and Missouri, when I look at what the Innocence Project is doing, no reasonable person can say that the state should be putting people to death when we know for a fact that there have been people who have been convicted by juries that were racist, by DAs that removed black jurors, by DAs that withheld evidence, or just simply folk got it wrong based upon eyewitness testimony. I would rather have somebody fighting for their life in the appeals court than put to death where there's no chance of being exonerated.
That's right. Because when like you said, when you're dead, you're dead. And so I just think, especially with the Innocence Project, we have seen so many people, cases be overturned because the DNA just did not match the crime. And so it's better to err on the side of caution. And we know that Black people have been charged and accused of many crimes that we have not done. And whether it is in the criminal justice system or whether it is just, downright the justice system of those who have been racist, they like to kill Black people, and sometimes without just cause and for, and at whim. So I would prefer, and I'm glad that Virginia is leading the South in abolishing the death penalty, because enough is enough.
And for all of the people who are watching, for all of y'all who, Roland, why are you sitting here? You supporting them damn Democrats. They ain't done this. They ain't done that. I don't know why you always talking about voting. Republicans in Virginia would have never abolished the death penalty. Republicans in Virginia would have never granted voting rights to the formerly incarcerated. So, and I've said this, I'm not a Democrat. I'm not a Republican. But I damn sure am smart enough to ask which of these two are more in line with where I stand on important issues. And if that means electing more Democrats to outlaw the death penalty, so be it. Because I got a better shot at communicating and convincing a Democrat than I do a Republican who don't give a damn about putting somebody to death. Hell, they'd rather have 5 executions a week and put it on television like it's a nightly television show. That is a fact. Going to a break when we come back. African American has a new app that you might want to use if you get stopped by a cop. We'll discuss that next on Roland Martin Unfiltered.
If people begin to believe that their democracy is fraudulent, if they conclude that voting is a charade, the system is rigged, then God knows what could happen.
They rigged an election. They rigged it like they've never rigged an election before.
Actually, we do know what could happen. It's happening right now.
The U.S. Capitol overrun, under siege. Pro-Trump extremists storming inside, flooding the halls, reaching the floor of the House of Representatives and the Senate.
Millions of Americans sincerely believe the last election was fake.
It was a landslide election, and everyone knows it.
We will not go quietly into the night. When thousands of your countrymen storm the Capitol building, if you don't bother to pause and learn a single thing from it, then you're a fool.
I know your pain. I know you're hurt. We had an election that was stolen from us.
We got to this sad, chaotic day for a reason. It is not your fault. It is their fault.
What's up, y'all? I'm Will Packer.
I'm Chrisette Michelle.
Hi, I'm Chaley Rose, and you're watching Roland Martin Unfiltered.
All right, folks, in our Tech Talk segment, nearly 100,000 routine traffic stops happen every day, and independent studies show that 3% are misconducted. That results in nearly 3,000 motorists a day potentially pulled over for no reason at all. Now, there's an app that can help fix that. Joining me now to talk about this is the creator of the Safe Cop Stops Project, Mike Burrow. Mike, how you doing?
I'm doing good, my friend. How you doing?
All right. So what led you to say, hey, I got to do this app? Was it an incident? Were you involved in one? Was it something you saw on television? What was it?
It was a couple incidents, actually, that led up to the culmination of it. First of all, back in the early 2000s, my dad's brother, who was a deaf individual, was pulled over and actually brutally assaulted by 4 officers during a traffic stop. And my family ended up suing that police department and winning. But fast forward 2016, my nephew turned 16 years old, and we were preparing a big party for him, to give him a car to go out that evening. And as I was coming home, I passed through a little town, and about 4 or 5 cop cars had a young gentleman pulled over, a young black teenager. He was probably 18 years old, and he was laying across the hood of the car. And it's like we met eyes. And when I looked at him, it was just fear all over him. They had the doors open, the trunk open, the whole 9 yards. And I just saw innocence all over this kid's face. And, in my mind, I'm thinking I'm on my way to give my 16-year-old nephew a vehicle to put him out here on these streets, and that could have been him. And so when I got to the house, I asked my sister, I said, hey, does he know his rights as a motorist? Does he know how to protocol, how to properly pull over, how to, work through a routine traffic stop? And, the answer was no, really none of us do. And so that was where it really started back in 2016. And so I did several years of R&D, meeting over 1,400 individuals, 50 police officers. And it kind of all came together as a culmination of all of that.
This obviously is critically important. So how does the app work? Take us through it.
Well, it's voice activated. It's going to be on both platforms. So it'll be iOS and Android. iOS will be completely voice activated, and then Android version, it'll be voice activated, but you'll still have to push the SOS button. So it's voice activated. You'll say a code word. So officer hits his lights. You say that code word. You will have already downloaded up to 10 individuals into that app, and it will send out a notification to all those individuals to say, "Hey, I'm being pulled over. Will you witness this with me?" And so all those individuals will be able to see and hear what's happening on the motorist's phone. But we do have a premium feature, which is called the virtual attorneys on demand, which we're going to be working with about 200 attorneys nationwide, where you'll actually be able to have an attorney live in the vehicle with you to speak on your behalf.
Is the app now live?
It is not live. Our actual launch date is May 17th. The iOS version is actually live right now in the App Store, but it doesn't have all of the features downloaded. And so, the Android version will actually be in beta around the 19th of April. We're going to work a few kinks out of it, and then the actual launch nationally will be on May the 17th.
Gotcha. And so it will, so you'll be able to, so if you get pulled over, you don't have to sit here. So what, do you just hit Siri? Is that how it works?
Well, like I said, it's voice activated. So you'll be able to just say, when you download the app into your phone, you'll put in a code word. And so then you'll say Siri, and then that code word for iOS, and then for Android, you'll just you'll say the code word, and then it'll prompt you to hit the SOS button.
Questions from our panel. Kelly, I'll start with you.
How do you see this? Do you have any stats as to what could possibly happen if once this is implemented? Like, are there any stats regarding how this app could affect lives if it were in place today versus not? Like, how is this used in real life? Like right now within the hypothetical, how do you see this being used in every day?
Well, like I said, it's been 4 years.
One second. It's not in the hypothetical. You're saying, Mike, that right now you can download it on iOS device, not Android, correct?
That is correct.
Right. So it's not hypothetical. It's now the app is live on iOS devices right now.
I thought he said it was not live. My apologies.
No, he said no, the app is live, but then by May they'll be fully ready on Android and iOS. Mike, go ahead.
Yeah, that is correct. And so, so in terms of how we could use it in real life today, in the last several years, and all the research that I've done, several families. Matter of fact, I get emails and phone calls constantly saying, I'm ready for this. I've got a child off to school right now that has been summoned by an officer for no probable cause, and an app like yours would be, invaluable right now. And so there's a lot of anticipation for the app, like I said, but something with the, cutting edge technology that we're using in this app, it's taking a little time for development.
D?
Mm-hmm. So let me ask you a question. So does it have to be mounted anywhere, or is it just the aggravation of the voice saying Siri or whoever record this?
That is
how does this work?
So even if your phone is in your purse or whatever, through the voice activation, it'll actually send out the notifications. So let's just say you can't get to the phone, at least it'll start recording the audio of it, and all of this information is actually recorded to a cloud. So, and it's untampered evidence. So if you need it in a court of law, we'll have that information so that it can be downloaded for you.
Oh my goodness, this is cutting edge. This is awesome. Because, I bought cameras for all the cars for my husband, my sons, and my brother, because I was just so concerned about all these stops. But this will just, eliminate it all. I mean, this is awesome. Thank you so much.
My pleasure.
All right, then, Mike, we certainly appreciate it, man. Thank you so very much for joining us on today's Tech Talk segment.
Thank you. Y'all have a good night.
Folks, that is it for us today. If you want to, I'm going to say Crazy White People for tomorrow, so y'all look for that tomorrow. If you want to join our Bring the Funk fan club, Every dollar that you give goes to support this show, our staff, the ability for us to do the work that we do. Think about it, y'all. I got MSNBC on right now. And you know what? I've been watching Ari Melber's show, Joanne Reed's show, now Chris Hayes' show, and I didn't see the Maryland HBCU story. I didn't see the Virginia death penalty story. I certainly didn't see Mike's there as well. They did do voter suppression, but the bottom line, folks, this is why we do what we do. And that is, and I definitely didn't see them talking about white identity politics by Meghan McCain. So this is why you got to support this show. This is black owned, black controlled. We don't sit here and ask permission to discuss the issues that matter to our people. We simply put them front and center. The opportunity for us to have the HBCU story, to talk with HBCU presidents is vital. Right now, I'm looking at folks. We got hundreds on Facebook, more than 3,000 watching on YouTube right now. Folks, if you're getting a free ride, that's fine. But look, your dollars matter. And so our goal, we're asking up to 20,000 people or even more to contribute $50 a year to what we do. That's $4.19 a month, 13 cents a day. Join our Bring the Funk fan club. If you don't have that, I've had people who have given us $10. Literally, we're live on the show. People have given us more as well. And so please, I ask you go to Cash App, $RM Unfiltered, PayPal.me/R Martin Unfiltered, Venmo.com/RM Unfiltered. Zelle is Roland at RolandSMartin.com. You can also reach us, folks. You can also reach us at RolandMartinUnfiltered.com. You can send a money order to New Vision Media Inc., 1625 K Street Northwest, Suite 400, Washington, D.C., 2006. That's it for me. Folks, I will see you tomorrow. Thank you so very much, Mustafa, Kelly, and Dee, for being a part of our panel today. Y'all have a great one.